Hey guys, it's Pete Jones with Good in the Head. As always, I invite you to go to www.goodinthehead.com. Check out everything that we've got there. Got some books for sale, t-shirts coming soon. It's a really great resource. Welcome to the Good in the Head podcast. The topics discussed in today's episode are about psychedelics and healing, trauma, repression, mental health, clarity, spirituality, religion, and so much more. I really think that this one is going to light you up. Connecting with Jamie has been an absolute blessing, and I'm sure you'll be entertained. I hope you have a great trip on this podcast. See what I did there? Much love to you and yours. Please share, like, comment, and subscribe, and let's get this out there. Okay, welcome everybody to today's episode of the Good in the Head podcast. My name is Pete Jones and I'm good in the head. Today, I've got a guest on that is a lot of fun, very spontaneous, and willing to go anywhere at any time with all this information. She's got a decriminalized shirt on, which is what this is all about. We're going to be discussing plant medicine. Jamie, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Pete. I appreciate this. This is good stuff.
I'm really excited to get to your story. Can we start with your upbringing, how you were raised, what your family was like, and let's go from there.
Yeah, I mean, as it pertains to plant medicine, the home that I grew up in was drugs or drugs. My grandfather, that I'm very close with, he was a New York City cop. And so the family was very anti-drugs. It was like pounded in my head from a young age, like we don't do drugs. We had long conversations about addiction, and what drug abuse does. And so my whole life, the way I felt was like, I can't even smoke pot because if you smoke pot, the next thing I'm going to have is a heroin addiction. And so it was a big deal in our family because, alcoholism runs in our family. We have, ties to Irish and German culture, and that's, a pretty big issue. And, I was very lucky. My father spent a lot of time with me, especially in the summer times. He was a teacher. So I have many beautiful memories of us sitting on our porch on that swing at night, looking at the stars and just talking and talking and talking. And addiction was a big thing, and drugs were big, and drugs were bad. That was the home that I grew up in, very disciplined, very big drive on learning, and determination and athletics. That was pretty much my upbringing.
Did you grow up in Flagstaff or here in
I did.
Arizona?
Yeah, I grew up on the outskirts of Flagstaff. I grew up in Munns Park, which it's about 20 minutes south of Flagstaff. And now it's like such a cool area. It's like a retiree. They have like so much fun stuff in the summertime. There's like bands and parades for 4th of July. When I grew up there, the roads were barely had just been paved. It was very isolating. There was not a lot going on out there. So I had kind of an isolating childhood. That's, I think, where my love of reading came from because I could just crack a book and go on an adventure. And when my parents were like, go entertain yourself, I'd be like, okay, cool. Like, I got books.
That sounds similar to my upbringing. We were raised Mormon, and
Yeah.
so same sort of ideology, around drugs, and they were all bad. And if you did them, you were bad, and I was raised with three sisters, and so I spent most of my life in my bedroom reading. So I kind of get that. I loved
Yeah.
reading.
I'm so jealous. You had siblings. It was just me. It was just I was by
Oh,
myself with three dogs. And I remember I wanted siblings so bad. It's like I knew my parents were crazy at a young age. I remember, I think it was 4 when I turned to my mom and I was like, Mom, like, let's get this. And she's like, I can't have any more kids. I'm like, well, can we adopt? And she was like, ask your father. And so I was like, Dad, like, can we adopt a kid? Like, I'm going to need a little help on the front lines. And he was like, I'm not raising a kid that's not mine. And I was like, fate accepted and embraced the dogs. And so I have to have a dog at all times now. They're like my companion for life because
oh,
I was
that's
by myself.
awesome. What kind of
Yeah.
dog do you have now?
She's a Staffordshire Terrier and Lab mix. She's a redhead too. She is just such the light of my life. Like she's the sweetest dog. Um, But with me, she's the only person, she rolls her eyes and like tisks, like
Mhm.
nothing's funny that I do, but doesn't do it to anyone else. She's an
That-
antagonizer.
That's fun. We've got a pit bull mix, and she has such a personality. It's funny how they're all so different, you know.
You know what? And it gets me too, and I'm just totally side topic. Like pit bulls really get a bad rap.
Mhm.
They get such a bad rap. And I grew up with labs and they're like super sweet, like, but you always wonder in the back of your head, is this dog going to protect me? Or are they just going to like cow? But when it comes to pit bulls, they have that heart and that sweet, but like they know when they need to protect. Like they're tremendous animals.
Yeah, I just love dogs. My sister's got a few. I just went over there this morning, and they were all over me. It was so fun. And
I know.
isn't it nice having unconditional love from someone or something in life?
Gosh, they teach you so much. You know what I mean? Like you do things and you're like, I'm the worst. In 5 minutes that are like, I love you. I've forgotten everything that you've done that's bad.
Yep. It's funny, it's a little side note here, but I was raised in a great home, have great parents. All my siblings are wonderful, good family, big family. And
Mm.
it wasn't till I met my wife that I really knew what like, I don't know. I felt so unaccepted and broken for so many years that her love was amazing. It was so accepting and full and honest and just rare. And I just feel very blessed to be with her at this time.
That's great you recognize that because I feel like a lot of people, when they even have it, they don't even recognize like the depth of love and acceptance and peace and they just kind of let that go. So it's a beautiful thing that you recognize it too.
Very blessed. As part of the Good and Head community, we do broach the topic of death and suicide and depression and hopelessness, nihilism. Did you experience any of that growing up, and what was that like for you?
Oh my God, like that just shapes me as a human being and who I am to my core as a whole really is suicide. The suicide wound goes so deep within me. Suicide stole one of the most important people in my life when I was 11 years old, and it changed the trajectory of my life. Like when you're 11, you're into like, silly things like school, not silly things like school, but school boys, things that just don't matter. And when you have such a deep wound like that at age 11, it really makes you an old soul like overnight. Like the color just drains from your world. And so that defined my entire life. Even still to this point, it's the reason why I fight so hard for plant medicine because, you know, these are very powerful tools that can heal people and really end the suffering. And, it could have completely changed my childhood and me as a person. And so, yeah. And then in our family too, mental illness, we have bipolar and depression and, a lot of this. So it's definitely defined my life and me as a person and how I view the world for sure. It definitely, I have this theory that like love is great and love is wonderful and accepting, but I feel like there's a deeper level, and that's suffering. And we can connect on such a deep level when we understand suffering. It's like you are suffering. I can feel you on a level. And love is great and all it comes, but until you fully accept it as suffering, especially in yourself and another person, I don't feel like you can truly like deeply connect to another.
I agree with that. I'm glad you said that because I find that to be so true. And deep connections and bonds come especially through suffering, not just love. That's for sure.
And
Um,
understanding the grief behind it because that's another thing that I really struggled with even as a child was, oh, get over it. Oh, you'll be fine. Just it'll take time. It's fine. And it was just never really like that for me because I feel like when it comes to grief and a wound that's so deep and heartbreaking, it's like you never move past it, but you move forward with it. And if you don't let it define you, it can really be a beautiful tool to connect in this world and see the beauty in it. And a mentor of mine back in the day used to say it's brutal, like it's so brutal this life, like it's just so gutting, but then it's so beautiful at the same time. And if you can really walk with that grief and see like and feel, but then see the beauty in all of it. I think that's one of the secrets of the many secrets to living in this world.
Life is brutal. I like that. I've never heard
So
that before.
yeah, it's gruesome.
What are some of the other secrets to life?
Oh gosh. A secret that I recently just discovered. I went to a Dr. Joe Dispenza meditation retreat about 3 weeks ago. Do you know this guy? Are
Wow.
you aware
Oh
of this
yeah,
guy?
follow him
I
religiously.
mean, he is like, I studied him. Okay, so let me back up. I have an old man crush club, and I'm probably just, I'm gonna be like, why did you say this? But I'm gonna do it anyways. I have an old man crush club, and it's these men in the world that have just tremendous minds, and just you're in love with their minds. So Jordan B. Peterson, Dr. Joe Dispenza, of course, Paul Stamets, and I'm having Nelson Mandela. And so these are very powerful men. And so Dr. Joe Dispenza, like I nerded out so bad on his content, like read all of his books, the Gaia, the what the bleep do we know, like anything that I could just consume. He was just tremendous and started doing his meditations. And then I went in March to a 3 day seminar. And I was like, this is great. And then I went to his week-long meditation. And during his week-long meditation retreat, that's when everything clicked. And I was like, holy, this guy is tremendous. Like, that's when all the years, like 6 years of studying him, finally click. And it changed my view on psychedelics because he focuses on the pineal gland and working with that in the brain because that's your third eye and your connection to like the mystic. And what they're finding is with his work and his meditations, they're biologically mimicking a psilocybin trip. And so one morning he runs a tight ship, let me tell you. First meditation in the morning starts at 6 a.m. and it like bing, bang, boom, no messing around, except for one day when we started at 4 a.m. because the pineal gland is most active between 1 and 4 a.m. And so I'm like getting ready at 3 a.m. and I'm just like, good God, like, what am I doing? I could just do some mushrooms and get there. Like, why are you doing this to yourself? And the question that was answered at the end of the week, the difference between doing psychedelics and laboring through meditation to get into that space is the difference between psychedelics last 6 to 8 hours or 12 hours if you're doing LSD. But if you labor for it, you walk it like you're in it all the time. And then that really triggered the thought of Ram Dass gave his mentor LSD and it didn't affect him because he walks in it. So that's really changed my view on psychedelics, where it's like, okay, this could be a disruptor to get to the meditation, to walk in it. And I think that's the secret in life, is to walk in that space and through your heart and vulnerability. So that's, I think, another big secret to life is labor through meditation.
I love that.
Yeah.
There are so many ways to meditate. Do you have a specific one that you love in particular?
I don't. I like all of them because he shakes it all up. One of my favorite things, he has this breath where you work with the cerebral spinal fluid, and by pushing it up into the brain, it pushes on the pineal gland. And in this gland are little piezoelectric crystals. And when you push on them, they create a field, like a frequency. And it releases dimethyltryptamine, I think,
Mhm.
DMT. And so, because our body naturally makes it. And so I've done DMT. So we were doing this breath because you got to do certain holds to get it up into the head. I was like, whoa, I'm getting it. And at the retreat, like around day 2, I started kind of going out because when you do DMT, you kind of go out and then you start journeying. And so I got really good doing it. And I got so good. I actually passed out and fell out of my chair because, you go out because with DMT, it goes zoop to the middle and then you go. And so I actually knocked myself unconscious on my chair.
So you fell out of the chair. You didn't hit your head, I guess, too hard or
Oh, I
anything.
smashed my head. I smashed my
God.
head. What was even better too is our group was like the closest to the stage that day. We were the second row from the front, and I was on the end cap, so I know Joe saw me crash out of my chair. But what I learned from that, which was really fascinating, is my mind continued, like your consciousness, what makes you you, the linear thoughts that you have and the experience that continues on. And so I think what I understand now is what happens when we die. It's not like lights out, black, you're in the ground, see you later. It's like your consciousness continues forward on to the next.
Just
And so
without the
that's
body. Yeah.
just without the body. So that's what I think was really interesting. And the second thing that was really interesting is when I came to, there was three people around me like, are you okay? And I'm like, why am I on the floor? And they're like, you fell out of your chair. And I was like, no kidding. Like, they're like, yeah, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. So I sat up and finished the meditation. But what I found really interesting is my cranium smashing into the ground didn't knock me out of it. It was physical touch that brought me back. Um, so I don't know. How did I get here? Why am I telling you? I
Yeah.
can't believe I'm even telling you
Oh,
this. This is like
oh,
confession.
this is good. This is why I do this podcast. I love
Oh,
it. Being
my
able to
favorite.
extract the gems from my guests is one of the greatest joys of my life. That's a gem. Now, you're
Yeah.
talking
So
about guy
my
crushes, right?
favorite.
Old man
No,
crushes.
oh no, great. And the favorite, you asked me what were my favorites were. So my favorites are with the breath because you can go there and you could almost like go into a DMT journey and then he drops you into this meditation, into the place of the quantum field of nothingness. And those are my personal favorites. Other ones I really like is what his work is really all about is like sinking into the heart, like physically focusing on the area, feeling deep emotions of the heart, like gratitude, love, appreciation, and then connecting that into the mind. So I like the heart ones too.
He's done so many years of research on these topics, and what fascinated me most was the fact that one thought can release into the human body chemically and hormonally, um, either thoughts of fear or stress or of love and light. And depending
Mm-hmm.
on the thought, the chemicals and the hormones of the body completely alter and change. It's released right in an area from the heart and from the brain into the bloodstream. And then within two pumps of the heart, the entire body, 80,000 plus miles of blood vessels, right? The vascular system is massive. Two pumps of the heart, it's everywhere. And all of a sudden, you've magnetized that energy and that chemistry, and it pulsates out. I thought that
Yeah.
was fascinating.
Oh, I mean, the research that he has on it too. The thing he kept saying is like, where is this information coming from? Because we're uploading and down regulating genes in this the DNA in this like state of oneness, and blind people are seeing this woman. I swear, I feel like I'm crazy after going to this week-long thing, but I saw things there happen in front of my eyes that make me believe without a shadow of a doubt those healing stories in the Bible are true. This woman, 20 years in a wheelchair, can't walk, day 3, second day walking meditation, walked out of her wheelchair. Like, are you kidding me right now? Like, I was like, what is going on around here? And then I went there to learn coherence healing, like to put your mind in that state and then send energy to help another. And the stuff that was happening in that room, like light beams coming from the ceiling, like, are you kidding me? It was insane. Like it was just really wild stuff. And so he's got a new documentary out called Source, It's Within You, and you can just look up the trailer. It's just, even the trailer is like, I don't know about this, because they put cancer cells in a petri dish and then had a coherence healer come in and the petri dish and cancer cells are gone. Like, how do you explain that? So, and then the most beautiful thing about him, he's Sicilian, so he's very Italian. So I was walking after the one of the walking meditations, I was walking back to the hotel and he walks among people. Like, he's very humble, he's very kind. And I saw him and I went up to him and I was like, can I give you a hug? And he was like, yeah. So I hugged him and I was like, thank you so much for having the courage and the bravery to bring this work forward. And he goes, oh, and then he kissed my cheek
Hmm.
forever.
Old man crush.
Oh
Check.
my
That's
God.
off the bucket list.
He's wonderful. And it was funny, like the whole week we're sitting at the table, like lunch, breakfast tables, and Googling, like, what is a cult? Like, are we part of a cult? But it's science based. Like, so what is that?
I've heard him on numerous podcasts over the years, like on Lewis Howes. That's one of my favorite few podcasts he's done with him. He goes through all of this information and he does seminars, I guess you could call them, with Greg Braden and Bruce Lipton. Bruce
Whoa.
Lipton's the cellular biologist that has discovered
Yeah.
that every one of the how many trillions of cells each of us have in our bodies have an antenna per cell. And Greg Braden, he was just on the Joe Rogan show a week ago. He just came on, and it was awesome. And he's
Hmm.
talking about how neurons are actually soft antenna for our consciousness to download and then upload information as well, right? Back to source. But we can access through our focus and our thinking anything. And the downloads of information will come because neurons change all the time, but he's calling them soft antenna, right? Well, the antenna on the cell will only allow out of trillions of possible lives one form of consciousness or a piece of God, source, whatever you want to call it, into the human body. And Greg Braden said one time, that consciousness informs itself through its creations. And I thought, wow,
Hmm.
what better way to inform yourself than by downloading pieces of yourself into trillions of life forms simultaneously, right? So dogs,
That's
flowers, rocks, whatever is made up of any cellular material. It's got antenna and consciousness is within everything.
that's really fascinating. That reminds me, I was having a conversation with Dave Hodges. He has that big mushroom church out in Oakland. And he does macro doses of mushrooms, and it's really fascinating to talk to him. And what I heard him say was the reason for all this is so consciousness can understand itself through us in our lifetimes. And I was like, your brain just kind of goes like fog for a minute because it's really hard to comprehend what all this is, because it's like the more you go down the rabbit hole and the deeper you dig, it's like the more this feels like a simulation. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
what is my body? Like what am I? What is all of this? It's really fascinating, but I never heard that antenna thing, but that's really fascinating.
Yeah, they're what they do together, the three of them, those minds, I'm mind blown every time I listen to them. It's incredible. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, over the centuries now, so many have taught that we are one. What does that mean? One consciousness, maybe
Yeah.
perceiving ourselves as separate, right? But
Yeah.
I'm really fascinated by near-death experiences. For months now, I've been listening to two, three, four, five of them a day.
Yeah.
And I came across one. Her Instagram handle is Buddha Betty, and she had a great story. But her consciousness left her body during a drug overdose, and she was able to see her pre-life and how she had chosen all these crazy experiences. I get choked up thinking about it because of what she's actually been through in her life. I
Yeah.
mean, from a young age, I mean, she was pimped out. She was a dancer, sex trafficked, drugs. And during this overdose, she realized that she had gone into this superstore in the spirit world or whatever you want to call it. And she said, oh, rape, I'll put that one in my cart. Oh, depression, I'll put that one, a mental disease and illness and all these. She said, dummy me, I wanted it all in one experience. And what she's doing now for people is just so incredible. She's so compassionate. Her whole life during work and after work is all about empowering people with information that will allow them to heal through. And like you were talking about suicide, it doesn't go away. You grow with it. And so she's been able to actually grow through all of these experiences, integrate all the lessons and teachings, and now empowers other people to learn how to do the same with their pain and their grief, their suffering. And I just really admire the work that she does.
That's so beautiful. Because that's funny we're talking about it because I really got into near-death experiences too. Was it the Next Level Soul podcast that you were listening to? Was that the one you're on?
That's one of them, yeah.
Goodness gracious. And I got so into it that it really makes you less afraid of what comes after, because it is the unknown. Because it's like, well, what happens? Like, do we just lights out? Are we done? But I think from listening to that, like there's a pattern. Like everyone experiences the same thing in different ways. Like you die, you go to the white light, some entity meets you, like friend, angel, family, whatever. And then you have your life review, and then you're back into the spirit world. And what was really interesting, because a couple of years back on my birthday, I was really struggling with, like, I'm not afraid to die, but I was really struggling with mourning, like, me as a person. Like, I've done so much work, and I've worked so hard to get here and learn the lessons and have the understanding and the grief and the compassion. Where does that go? Does it just die? How sad is that? Like, just becomes dust and nothing. And so I was meditating by the river, and the message I got was like, everything's recorded. Like, every single person's life is recorded. Like, nothing is lost. Like, you will not be lost. Like, your life will be recorded, and it'll be recorded in such a way where people can take pieces from it and learn it, or if they want to experience it, they can jump back into it again. And I was like, I don't know, that sounds crazy. And then 2 weeks later, I was listening to that podcast, and it was like they were talking about the Akashic records. And that's the house where, like, the library where it's all. And I was like, oh my God, like, this is a thing. And that just is kind of warming, because, like, me as a person will not be lost, just like you as a person will not be lost in all your travels and learning and understandings. And so, anyways, that next level podcast, like, was so beautiful.
I love that one as well. There's something called the Monroe Institute. Tom Campbell is a physicist, and he's got a trilogy of books. The audio books are about 24 hours each. They're pretty robust
Oh,
books.
wow.
They're thick. And I got about halfway through the first one. I've listened to tons of his podcasts, and he's also been on Joe Rogan recently. But he talks about out of body experiences and
Mm.
how it's available to anyone. It's actually quite easy through meditative practices, breath work. You can, your consciousness can leave the body behind and go places, access the Akashic records, all these things. Well, I think it was either late 60s or early 70s, the CIA took over the project kind of, and they've been using it as a tool. The government, the army, has a lot of remote viewers, and they're able to work with consciousness, allowed to leave the body. Like they've had top secret information on a jet plane that went down. They didn't know where it was. They were scrambling. They were frantic to get it back. And so what they did is they went and to a remote viewer, and in an envelope they gave them the question. They didn't ever open the envelope. They simply were able to decouple from their body temporarily and see the question still sealed in the envelope, came out just minutes later with the latitude and longitude. And they went right there, rescued the pilot, got the top secret information back immediately. And that's just, it's kind of mind bending. Like, oh, that's some BS. I don't agree with this kind of thinking. That's not possible. But one thing that plant medicine did for me is it blew my mind and my heart wide open. And now I no longer believe that nothing's impossible. I think that, I mean, in any good simulation, you'll be able to do anything, right? I mean, we've got to live by human physical laws and different things, but there are also spiritual and consciousness laws that we may not be aware of. I mean, the eyes only see a little bit of the spectrum. The ears only hear a tiny portion of the limitless possibility of sound and vibration. And we're so limited in the human body, but without this body, what are we? Everywhere, everything. I don't know.
I think people tend to go, oh, that's BS, because it's easier to go that way. Oh, it's just crap. Ah, it's just
Hmm.
crap. Well, what if it's not crap? Well, then that just is like can of worms, and you have to, like, start really fully understanding yourself. And that's not that's not easy.
It's not always fun either.
No, it's not comfortable. And that's why, back to plant medicine, I always tell people, like, psychedelics are not for everybody. Like, they're just not, because it takes a tremendous amount of courage and bravery to step up to the plate and be like, I'm going to trust, I'm going to surrender, and I'm going to face my demons and my darkness, and I'm going for it. And so that's just not for everyone. It's just not.
No.
But those who are willing to do it, like Jordan B. Peterson says, the dragon protects the gold, and if you can get past that, you can have all the riches of this life.
Oh, wow. Now, do you
Mhm.
know if Jordan Peterson's done plant medicine at all? I don't know.
I never heard him say that he's done it, but he does talk a lot about it.
Hmm.
He talks about they did a DMT study, and he said the guy just scared the pants on off himself because people were coming back and saying the same things, like these entities, these things, these messages, and they're like, we don't know what to do with what we don't know what to do with. Like, where do we compartmentalize this? And so I've heard him talk about that a lot, but I don't think he's done it. Well, I mean, I would not be surprised if he has.
Sure,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? He's a great thinker, and I feel like a lot of great thinkers of history and in general, like, have to have their minds opened to these bigger things,
Yeah, bigger ideas than the ones we were raised with for sure.
for sure.
Um, Being raised Mormon Christian, I mean, I went on a Mormon mission. I traveled over to Greece and I stayed in Greece for over 2 years and lived in Athens, Thessaloniki. Was at Mars Hill, right there at the Parthenon where he's preaching in the Bible. It was incredible. And when I got there, I was talking to people, and they're like, "Well, you do realize that Christianity only makes up 10% of the world's population, right?" And I'm like, "What? I thought everybody was Christian." I was so naive and didn't know anything. And I was like, "Wow, I think now it's around 22, 23%." But that's always fluctuating. And it's funny. I heard this little quote. It's like, Christ was never Christian. Buddha wasn't Buddhist. All these kinds of things. And it's like,
Muhammad
they
wasn't
all taught love.
Muslim. Yeah. Yeah. What was really interesting is I lived a year in Asia, and I was devout Christian, like all through Christ, saved, And when I went there, it's very Buddhist and very kind and very accepting. And I really struggled. I'm like, how are all these people going to hell because they have not accepted Christ as their Lord and Savior? And that's where I really struggled. And then I came home and I started digging in. And this is prior to my plant medicine days and this whole world that I'm in now. But I started doing research, and I was like, wow, this is really weird. This story repeats. You know what I mean? Like the Jesus story repeats throughout history, like back to the Egyptians and Horus. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, well, what is this then? Like, and so I went back to the oldest religion, and I went to be pagan. I was like, I'm going to see what pagan feels like for a year and go from there. And it's weird. Nothing changed. Like, Christmas is Yule. Halloween is not Imbolc. Halloween is Samhain. Even Groundhog Day, Imbolc was in there, and I was like, "Well, this is really fascinating." And so that got me going down the religious pathway, and full circle. What's really interesting is, have you heard of the book, The Immortality Key? You heard of this
The
book?
immortality key.
The Immortality Key. Yeah. This guy goes through history and goes back to where psychedelics came from and brings it forward. And the part that really got me was when Jesus got introduced and what was really in the wine at Cana and what was really going on with psychedelics and Christianity. Jesus was a drug man. He would have like these, oh, what do they call it? The sacraments. Sacraments were psychedelic wine, and Mary Magdalene, she was the high priestess. So the biggest, thorn in the butt of anything trying to be controlled, like through man, are women and drugs. And so Mary Magdalene would dose, and Jesus would hold the space, and then Christianity just flourished.
Wow. I,
Yeah,
I saw a documentary where they were showing glass stained windows in the Catholic Church that are centuries old with mushrooms all over within them. And I was like, what's that about? I've never seen that before. I never heard of this. It was really fascinating. And where was he
yeah.
for, 20, 30 years before he ended up in Jerusalem the last 3 years in the New Testament?
Yeah, he was all over the world and learning from like Tibet and all these different places and learning from these really deeply spiritual people. And so that's never talked about, like, I'm back in church again, thank goodness. And my pastor was talking about, like, yeah, Jesus spent most of his life in an area smaller than Texas. And I was like, stop, stop
Top.
now. That's not true. But like, whatever, like, I'll drink my juice, even though it's a pretty like benign sacrament compared to what they used to do. It's cool. I'll partake. Fine.
Oh my God. So a couple of years ago, I came across some information that was really fascinating. There's these three books. It's called The Lost Teachings of Jesus, Volume One, Two, and Three,
Mm,
right? And
mhm.
this is what that looks like. That's the
Oh, of
second
course.
book.
Of
And within
course.
the first book, it's talking about this Russian explorer in 1895 that ended up going into Tibet and meeting with some monks. And he was asking about this Yeshua guy, that they all were talking about. And they were very closed off towards foreigners, so they didn't really tell him anything. They asked him to leave. And within a day or two, he had broken his leg. So he went back there to heal and was there for weeks and got in good with them. And they let him see some of the text and the teachings and how he went from village to village, escaping death narrowly everywhere he went because everybody that was in charge of each little city he was in wanted him to just shut up and stop trying to teach people that they needed to learn how to read and they should be more learned, and all these things. It was really an interesting read. But
That is
I don't know.
fascinating.
I mean, Christians mostly stick to the Bible, but one day I was like, well, what if there's other information on Jesus? I mean, I want to emulate his life and be like him, right, as a Christian or whatever. And what else is there out there? So it kind of led me down some rabbit holes that were a little new and unexplored.
Yeah, and what's also really interesting too is like a lot of the stuff that is like known in Europe, like, oh yeah, we know you don't know that. It's really interesting phenomena. Like here in the United States, we're so like cut off from the reality of truth of what this is in this world and the history of religions.
Thank God for technology. It can be
I
used for
know.
good or bad, but I mean, I'm
I
glad we
mean,
have it.
hey, at this point in time, like ignorance is a choice. Like if you want to be like, no, I mean, that's cool. Like you're more than entitled to your opinions, but it's like you're kind of like, oh, bummer, dude. Like you should
Uh,
go more, go further, go deeper. It's okay. Like it's okay to question your identity and it's okay to question like your belief systems that were like pounded in your head, since you were a kid.
were you raised to think like this? Because I was not. I was told what to do, how to act, how to dress, how to speak, what to think, what not to think. Don't ever question the truth, right? Um, were you raised in a similar fashion?
I was sort of like my dad this way, but then he also raised me to question everything, like question this, question that, question. And I'm sure he regretted it my teenager years where he was like, shut up and just do what you're told. Like, why? Like, what's the reasoning behind it? Like, what's your idea? Like, what's your hypothesis behind this? Like, why are you doing what you're doing? And he's just like, go away, child. So I kind of got a little bit of both.
That's funny. So
Yeah.
your teenage years sound interesting. Those are usually some tough years. What were some main memories that you have, and some of the things that you learned that were useful to you now in your teenage years?
Oh gosh, I would say my biggest lesson during that time was when I was 16 years old. I actually had a suicide attempt. And halfway through the attempt, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, that inner voice is like, you don't want to die. You just want to stop suffering. So the next day I told my dad what I did and he got me help. Like, cause suicide is, that's a trigger in our family pretty bad. And so I went through the whole process and then they put me in a what do you call the places after you've had suicide where you go in and I remember I'll never forget that. Like when I went in there, they have this big door where it like closes. And I was just like, oh my God, like what is my life? Like they took my shoelaces away. I was like, oh my God. Had me on suicide watch for every hour. But then the next day I met with a counselor and then they threw me into an integration group with a bunch of kids that were my age. And there was this one kid that was speaking. I've never seen eyes like his since. They were violet. They were like almost purple. And I remember he was talking and like I just couldn't believe it. I was like dumbfounded staring at him because what was coming out of his mouth, which was speaking from my heart. I was like, oh my God, you feel like that? Like that's how you feel, like that's how you existed, like that's me. And then I was just like, whoa, if he feels like that and I feel like that, this whole circle feels like that. And I bet you some of these adults feel like that too. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. Like, I'm not alone in my feelings. I'm not isolated. Like, this is a humanness here. And right in that moment, I was like, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be okay. And I got out of that place pretty quick. I was out of there in a week. And I remember I heard a counselor telling my father, like, I've never seen a kid turn around so fast and get out of here so quick. And I think that was the biggest lesson that I learned at that age was like, you are not alone in your feelings. Like if you are feeling a certain way and as ridiculous as you feel, I guarantee you a ton of other people are feeling like that too. And that really connects us on such a deep level. And to learn that at 16, I think was big. And then I remember I went back to school and back to my friend group, and nothing felt right. They just felt so like fake and plastic and just not real. Like you're not connecting on a level. And I think that's where my suffering hypothesis came from. But I remember I got through the day. It was so weird. Everyone was looking at me weird. I think everyone knew I was in the institute, which is whatever, screw them. And then I changed my clothes and I left. I was leaving the locker room, and the way that the high school was set up is you walk out of the locker room and you go past this room where all the kids go to get taped and everything like that. And it was very busy. And one of my best friends was working in there to tape and learn how to be a trainer. And just as I was about to walk past the door, I hear her say, "Oh my God, did you guys hear? Jamie's out of the loony bin."
Mhm.
And just as like she said that, I walked past and everyone turned and I was like, "You all are assholes." And then I went to volleyball and I was looking
Wow.
around and I was like, I don't want to be around any of these people. None of these people support me. None of these people see me. None of these people give a, you know what I mean? And I was like, my friend group, not my friend group, and I literally like pulled back, and then I started hanging out with like the weirdos and the geeks and the freaks, and they were some of the kindest, nicest, deepest people that I'd ever met my whole life. And so that really changed a huge perspective in my life about quality of people and really seeing into people and learning that I am not alone in how I feel. And that's huge.
It is huge. I'm so glad you shared that story. Thank you. I've had a similar experience in 2014. I was really suicidal. I couldn't stop and I was scared. I was married to my third wife. We had like six children in the house, and I'm like, I'm supposed to show up somehow for all of this and keep it going. And so is she. And I need to be honest with her. I said, look, I've got a plan. Today's the day. I need help. So she got me checked into this place in Scottsdale, supposed to be the nicest one in the state, blah, blah, blah. We had insurance. It was great. I get in there and it was the four most hellish, unbearable days of my life, and probably the four most important because for the first time in my life, I was put into a group. And I had always been so closed off and very quiet and secretive and ashamed of this suicidal ideation secret, the many attempts. And when I was in the group, I heard the same thing that you did. And I thought, wow, I'm not alone.
Mhm.
And I don't have to feel like this all alone, and that changed everything for me, completely altered the trajectory of my entire life and existence from then on. I was out in 4 days. I begged, I pleaded, I said, get me the hell out of here. I don't belong here. I need to get back to my wife and kids. And when I got out, um, my wife had gone to some people at church and told them all of my secrets. And I was like dumbfounded. I was so upset. I was like, that wasn't yours to share. And she's like, oh, yes, it was. I need help too, And I was like, oh, shit, okay, I get that. And she said some people in the ward have two kids that have been dealing with this kind of thing and been in and out of mental hospitals for years. And they found something out of Canada. The company's called True Hope. And this man that was a chemist lost his wife and daughter to suicide and dedicated his whole rest of his life to some kind of a compound that would help people who are malnourished and don't have the vitamins and minerals they need in their brain to lessen the inflammation. And ironic thing is that inflammation presses against the fissures of the brain and causes symptomology. So inflammation is the whole problem. Uh, I was told you're bipolar. That was my identity. And in the group that one day I said, I am bipolar. And they're like, no, you're not. And I'm like, yes, I am. And they're like, listen, bipolar is a thing. That's not your identity. And I was like,
Mm.
oh, I got it. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm having these symptoms. That doesn't make me that thing. I'm a divine, eternal, spiritual being downloaded temporarily into a human body for this experience. I'm not bipolar. And
Yeah.
so she said, you're going to quit your meds and you're going to try this out. And I was like, I can't do that. The doctors for 15 years have been telling me, you know, you're suicidal, you're homicidal, you're a danger to society. And I was scared, you know.
Oh my God.
And so I talked to the psychiatrist I was going to, and he told me to get the hell out of his office. If you're not going to do what I say, then go to hell. And I was like, I just came here to let you know and maybe get some clues and tips and tricks on how to taper off of this with no withdrawals, right? But somebody at True Hope in Canada, they were on the phone. They said, listen, take amino acids from like GNC or the nutrition store and quadruple the dose that it's recommending and do that for a couple of months while you're tapering off slowly. And then start taking this True Hope supplement called Q96, right? It's all natural. And I was like, okay, zero withdrawal effects. I got my mind back. I got my body back. My life was mine again after 15 years of this dark suicidal time. And it was torture. And to get all of me back again was such a gift. And I was like, thank God, man. And within a few months, she said, listen, you're thinking for yourself. I don't really think this is going to work out. And so we separated and later divorced. And it worked out beautifully. I was like, she was my gift from God that I needed to get off the meds. I never would have. She goes, have they ever worked for you? And I'm like, huh, no, not once in 15 years. I was like, there are other things we can do. There's other alternatives. Like I was so closed off to anything else. I was just like never feeling anything. It was so wild. So
Yeah.
when you're talking about mental illness, suicidal ideation, group work, I mean, it just hit home. I had to share that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, there's a few things that are coming up that I kind of want to ask you about what you just said. So the first thing I just want to just state this for the listeners that are going to be hearing this down the road. In my personal opinion, I think anything suicidal, ideations, thoughts, anything straight to ketamine. Boom, straight to ketamine.
Mm.
That's just going to be I've been on so many calls where people are just like working around the clock to try to keep people alive that just don't want to be in this world. And after like 3 sessions, they choose life. And so I think that's the power of ketamine. However, I don't think it should be long term. I feel like ketamine should be like a boom, a wake up, a door opener, and then you continue forward. Because I mean, I have my personal thoughts. I'm very contra. I don't know. But that's what I think that ketamine should be used for. And then the second thing that I really want to talk about is men's groups. And I was really kind of heartbroken a few years back. Like I didn't realize this, that men are very solitary creatures in this society. Like women are so all about like community and we're biologically wired and women are very sick unless we have our female tribe. And finding out that men are solitary creatures and they don't really connect and they don't admit what's wrong and talk about what's wrong and that they feel like a shield and an ATM, like that really breaks my soul on such a deep level that we have come so far in society where the masculine is even recognized and supported. And so I feel like men's groups are like vital right now. I mean, what do you feel about that?
I'm so glad you said that. It reminded me of a church group. It was all men that I had gone to for about a year, and I felt so connected with all of them. I was like, this is a thing. It was so uncomfortable the first few times. I didn't know what to say or how to act, but I got to be good friends with a lot of those guys. And I'd never really had many friends growing up. You know, we lived way out in the mountains and it was hard to hang out with kids my age, but that really is an empowering point. Um, and I would highly recommend listening to some of the content that was created. I think it was last Friday when we went to it was the Arizona Psychedelic Society conference, and that's where I first heard you speak, and I was blown away. I was like, yes, I was so excited. But then before you, a couple hours before you, there were two gentlemen on the stage, you know, and
Yeah, Mike and
Mike and
Chad.
Chad, yeah, and they are vets, and they said the same thing, like get into a support group, one that actually supports you and will listen and understand, and then they also said that ketamine was the way to go within 3 sessions. People that are hyper suicidal can't stop thinking about ending their lives and all the pain that comes with it. Bam, they're out of it. And
Yeah.
I was like, that's fascinating. I wonder what would have happened had I known about that back then.
Right.
Um,
Right. And that's what I keep thinking. Like, I just want to create the frameworks and the systems that would have helped me, that would have helped my family and my friends and not let us slip through the crack. And like like it's like the Buddhist way is like the second arrow, like life is suffering. That's the first arrow, but you don't need to suffer on top of suffering. That's the second arrow. You don't need that. But what could have changed my life and yours many years sooner is just like, come on, guys. But the thing is with ketamine is I feel like that you need to keep moving forward. Don't just stick with ketamine
Mhm.
because how I feel is that ceremony is there's nothing in the Western model that can touch the level of healing that you get working with like a shaman, a facilitator, and medicine and healing in community. Like nothing can touch it. Um, I know because you know Mike on stage, I've done ceremony with him, and he holds a beautiful space. I one of the guys had a little struggle of an experience with just hape, and we were kind of transitioning to something else, and the guy was sitting there cross-legged, and there was a guy to his left and a guy to his right, and they were holding his hands, and I turned around and I was like, oh my god, like it's just so beautiful. You don't see spaces like that ever. And I had to turn away and I was like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. And Mike was there and he goes, it's beautiful, isn't it? Like, it's so beautiful. And I'm like, why aren't there more spaces like this for men? Like, why isn't it more stuff? You know, because guys would be like, oh, that's gay. And if
Mhm.
guys think like that, they're usually going to be the first one in tears with their hands being held, which is so important.
Yeah, it's almost like they're finally realizing that they need to become the man that they needed when they were little, and they transition into that man and then love that little child that's within them. Finally, they
Yeah.
they they never got
And
what
that
they
makes you
needed.
more masculine and more important and more stable, you know? And it's like, I think I did a lot of studying with the masculine and the feminine energies because I feel like we're so lost in this society.
Mm.
Like these women that are like, I don't need no man to raise this kid. It's like, are you outside of your damn mind? Yes, you do. You need both. Like we are together, we are one, we become one flesh, and it's important to have that balance. And so the masculine is so important. And I remember I was listening to this speaker many years ago at a psychedelic conference, and he was talking about mescaline. He works with the mescaline, you know what I mean, San Pedro. And
Okay.
so he was saying that the masculine is very gentle and supportive, and I was like, no, it's not. And then he goes, yeah. And then I was telling a woman this, and she goes, absolutely not. And he goes, my next question is, what's your relationship like with your father? And I was like, you don't know me. You don't
Oh,
know me, right? So the masculine is very gentle and very grounding. And because women are chaos, we're like, and so we need that like hold to this earth. And so if the man isn't, his nervous system isn't emotionally regulated and solid, well, then the whole thing isn't solid. So we have to create spaces where men can like find within themselves like where that solid, you know, regulation is and be emotionally regulated and have their nervous system down and chill for, you know, women.
I love that. I always joke with my wife. She's kind of like a dude. She grew up with a brother and her sister, and she was the cool chick in school, and very curious and has lived life fully. And she's just more like a dude wrapped up in a woman's body. And I was raised around sisters, not allowed to play sports, very secluded out in the mountains, didn't hang out a lot as a kid. And I'm more like a female wrapped up in this man's body. So we just intermingle and mesh so well together, and we're just we're solid because of that. It's just fascinating how different masculine and feminine energies can kind of intertwine and become exactly what both people need. It's beautiful to see. And I mean,
Yeah,
this is just a human body. It's not who we are. We are consciousness. And so, I mean, I think it's possible that anyone can couple with another person in love, and they can sort of experience the divine masculine and feminine interchangeably within themselves and through and with another person. And I think that's beautiful.
absolutely.
You mentioned hape or rape.
Yes, yeah.
Um,
That do you know what that is, or do you want me to explain it?
I do know what it is. This is
Yeah.
and from Four Visions online, we order that.
I
And
love Four Visions.
I would
Yeah, no,
love for you to explain it in detail.
Oh, I'll do my best. Like I don't know
Awesome.
much, but it's just ground tobacco and is very fine, almost like baby powder, like you showed. And it's done through blowing, you know, it through the nose, which burns like the fires of hell. So for people who are going to get doing it, like I'm not known to sugarcoat anything. It's not pleasant. So they shoot it up one side and you kind of, and then they shoot it up the other. And then you sink in. And of course, you do it with intention. And we know in this space, like intention is everything. And then it's like the tobacco will lead you and connect you with what you're wanting to know. And I started doing a lot of work with Hape. I would do somatic breathing to kind of like clear, and then I would set my intention and do Hape. And it is just amazing the downloads and the information and the clarity you can get from blowing tobacco up your nose. It's like
Yeah.
so wild, you know. I mean, it's like, you know, when you smoke a cigarette, you kind of get that high, but it's if you do it in a ceremony and intentional way and in a very spiritual way, it gives you messages. And I know like down in South America in that area, it's a sacred plant.
Yeah. For hundreds, if not thousands of years, they've been doing this. And I think it was Joe Dispenza, maybe it was someone else, but they said that hape actually goes up into the nasal cavity, into the brain, and decalcifies a pineal gland, which
Do you
fluoridated
really?
waters, metals, all these things are calcifying everyone's pineal gland. It's almost like strategically placed in our food and water so that we are less consciousness and more human, you know? So when
Mhm.
I heard that, I was like, oh, that's cool. That actually makes sense. It sure burns like it's decalcifying something up there.
Oh God, it's like kind of like wasabi, but not.
What what was your first experience with that? Like, how were you introduced to it? Why did you have the balls to actually try it in the first place?
A friend of mine, well, because when I first got into this space, I walked the line very hard. Like psychedelics are not for me. Mental illness runs in my family. They're just not for me. They're just not. They're not for everybody. And it was very confusing because people are like, but you fight so hard and you've dedicated your life. And I'm like, I believe in altered states of consciousness and freedom. And I'm big into cold water. And boy, that'll alter your state of consciousness and make
Hmm.
you very present. Sonic does it the same in a way. I was into somatic breathing. So I was in all that. Well, a friend of mine, she's like, I really want to do Hape, but I don't want to do it alone. Will you do it with me? And I'm like, yeah, of course. Like, you know, we'll do more for others than we will for ourselves. And so it was so profound because this was the first time I've done any medicine, like anything like that. And so she blew it up one nostril, and I was like, oh God, like, what is going on? And then she blew it up the other, and then I sunk into it, and it was just the most beautiful experience. Like even to this day, like I'll never forget it. It was so profound. It was like my head opened and pure unconditional love started pouring through me. And just at that time, my uncle Michael was the one that passed away from suicide when I was 11, the one that I was just so attached with and just loved him so much. I heard his voice say, I never left you. I was there all along. And then as that's happening, I'm shown a picture show from the moment he passed away. And it was like every moment throughout my life that I missed him. Boom, 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 boom. And I'm seeing this whole picture show and I'm feeling unconditional love. And I'm just hearing him saying over and over, I never left you. I was there all along. I never left you. I was there all. And I'm just sitting there just like crying and just snot. It's just like all over. And I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like he never left. He was all along. He saw me suffer all these years. And oh, the unconditional love. I was like, oh my gosh, like just the love. And then it was just like an echo. I never left you. I was here all along, and then dark. And then I came back and I was like, oh my, oh my God. And it just profoundly changed me. And that's when I started thinking, like, maybe psychedelics are for me. Like, what other messages does he have for me? And so my healing with psychedelics is always to him. It's my root trauma. Like when I did bufo the first time when I was under the medicine, the first thing I did was call out for him. I was just like, Michael, Michael, and which was really weird because Mike he was the one facilitating, and he's like, I'm right here. But the way he said it and the tone he said it, it sounded like my uncle. I was like, oh my gosh. And I was just like, I love you so much. I miss you so much. I do it for you. I do it all for you. And so all my healing has always been around my uncle, but it started with Hape. So beautiful.
Interesting. That that
Yeah.
is such an interesting experience. I love it. How often do you do it or recommend that others do it?
Well, I recently went through a really bumpy road. Like life just freaking cut my knees out. So I was doing it every day. I was
Mhm.
doing it every day, but I was doing it ceremonial. Like I said, I would get up, I would do the breath work, I would meditate, and then I would do it, and then I would journal. And that really got me like moving forward, and I the lessons came fast and hard, and I really got hit the road running with it. Now I'm not really doing it right now. I think you just do it when you need it to support you, just like microdosing. Like you do it when you need it to support you, or ceremony, you do it when you need the messages to like restart your brain. um but yeah, it's kind of like a personal relationship as long as it's not abused, because I feel like that's like a really fine line in this space.
Mhm.
Is you know what I mean? Like people are doing ceremony every weekend, and it's like, are you integrating this? um
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but you need to make sure there's an integration piece. You need to make sure it's just like you're not escaping. Like when I would sit down
Mhm.
and do hape, I would be like, I am struggling with this, show me this, and it would be like, whoa. And then the rest of the day I'm like journaling and I'm thinking, and then the next morning I'd be like, okay, so that now I need to know what this. So it was very helpful in my healing. And I think during that time, God, I just kept thinking like, if this were to happen to a lot of people, this would take them out of life for, you know what I mean? But thank God for
Yeah.
plant medicine and intention, because it really helped me learn my lessons quick. So just
That's
careful with,
beautiful.
I'm so worried about the addiction part of it. You know what I mean? And I'm so worried about like crutching on it instead of like,
Sure. I
you know
mean,
what I mean?
addictions are so useful in that they distract you from the pain and the suffering or the trauma. And it's so easy to become addicted to things as humans, because we don't want to experience that pain and trauma and suffering.
Yeah.
And so we choose certain addictions to like distract us and put it back there. We'll deal with that later. And that can be dangerous because if we're not doing the work and
Yeah.
integrating things we learn throughout our lifetimes, then we're always just going to have addictions and we're always going to be distracting ourselves from the work. And that's the reason we're here, to experience that fully and to move through it and then experience exponential expansion later on forever. But
Yeah.
some people trade their addictions for a plant medicine addiction, and that's where the danger lies. I think that's what you're speaking to, yeah.
That's what I'm worried about, because it's like if you're going to use it to numb out and like not feel things, that's not a good idea. But if you're using it like, I'm hurting and I need to understand this now, do it and then learn. And then it's like, man, you cry it out, and then continue forward. Because if most people would be like, oh, you were doing hape every day? Okay, sure, Jamie. Like, I'm sure it was helping you process. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's like, but I mean, every morning I would get up and I'd be like, what am I struggling with today? Like, what is the wall that I'm coming up to? And how can this help me move past it? Because I don't have time to feel sorry for myself, and I don't have time to blubber in my sadness right now. Like, I need to fix this, and I need to fix it now.
yeah.
And
I
that's what I
love that.
used it for.
That's that's useful. That's good to know. I'm glad you shared that. I was introduced to it by some family members who had gone to Rhythmia at Costa Rica, and when they came home, they brought back hape, and I was like, "Well, what's that crap?" And I was administered some of the hape, and I was like, "Holy mackerel! I don't think I enjoy this very much. It really hurts." And then I had that expanded feeling of love you're talking about. I was like,
Yeah.
"Whoa!" And I can
Yeah.
see how hape or anything similar to it could have an addictive result because that feeling of love, which is really just what we truly are, and where we're all just love and light within, and being connected to the purest form of that in just a temporary fashion through the use of plant medicine is a beautiful experience. And it's like, wow, well, how can I get that all the time naturally without any of the, things? And that's why I love what you shared about Joe Dispenza and meditation and breath work. I mean, it's a thing and it is possible for anybody who's willing to look into it and utilize it.
Yeah, yeah. And that kind of brings it back full circle, like with the psychedelics. Like I used to think it was like the tool in the toolbox, and now I don't. It's just another tool from point A to point B. And I've noticed through my journey, like I've had, because I started with like cold water and then breath work and then hape and then microdosing mushrooms and a little more mushrooms and then Bufo, I wouldn't recommend doing that path, like going straight from like hape to the most powerful psychedelic 5-MeO DMT to and now I've gone to like meditation and moving on, so it's like you're moving through it. But I think the whole secret is to be sober and live fully in this moment even when it sucks, and because as you know, is like the darkest days are those that define you and test
Mm.
you and help you grow. And if you look at it like that, like this day sucks, I feel like I'm not going to survive, but I'm going to just focus on this minute. And if I can't, just get through this minute and then get through the hour and then get through the day and just keep having faith and surrendering, like that's where the true muscle is, and being completely sober in this life, because it's so fast and it's so short to just
Yeah.
fully accept all of it.
Wow. Well put. Let's get into the legalities. What is legal in Arizona, and what do you have to go to, say, like Mexico or South America for?
It's all illegal in Arizona. So the difference between, and I'm just going to cover this really quick. The difference between legalization and decriminalization is legalization is prohibition light. So they're saying that, yeah, this is legal. Like with cannabis, I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, cannabis is legal, woo! But it's like, no, we have restrictions. You can only grow so much, do so much in this. And that pushes out the legacy growers, like the people that have dedicated their lives to this before the legal model came in. So it's prohibition light. So up in Oregon right now, they have the psilocybin centers, but it's not decriminalized. So if I have mushrooms outside of the psilocybin centers, I could get arrested.
Mm.
So legalization means government's involved. Government has a say in your consciousness, how you do it, where you do it, who you do it with. When it comes to decriminalization, it's saying that we are just going to decriminalize all of these naturally occurring psychoactive plants and fungus, and nobody's going to go to jail for wanting to heal themselves. And so, how it works is we go city by city and we just say we're not going to fund the pathway to prosecute. So, if we decriminalize here in Flagstaff, I get arrested for having mushrooms. The prosecutor is going to come down and say, we have no money to push this girl through the system. You got to let her go. So, and that doesn't go against state or federal, because state and federal have no jurisdiction on how a city allocates its funding.
Mm.
Problem with that is we as a city say we're sovereign. These are our framework and foundations around psychedelic medicine. We have the integration in the community around it. Nobody's going to jail. We're not funding it. State and federal could still come in and be like, huh, I don't think so. So it's not foolproof yet. So that's why we have to legalize and decriminalize simultaneously. And they're doing that in Colorado, and one is helping the other. And so they have a really beautiful model of healing in Colorado.
How can we support these things? Is there a website, petitions we sign? What can the general
So
population do?
yeah, if you want to get involved, I would go decriminalizenature.org. Just Google decriminalize nature. There's a website there. They have this beautiful map you can click to find your local people. They'll connect you to it. We have Dr. Larry Norris is the head of this movement. He is the one that is in charge of team building. So he has, I think it's the last Wednesday of every month, he has the orientation. So you can come in and learn about it, because there's a lot to learn on how to go about this in different ways. You can go there. For the state of Arizona, we have monthly Decriminalize Nature Arizona meetings, where if you want to jump in and kind of see where you're at, just get a little bit more information, or even just connect to community. We have Decriminalize Nature Flagstaff too. There is Facebook pages and Instagram pages all around this.
Now, I was under the understanding that they have ketamine clinics throughout Arizona. Is that
Yeah.
legal?
Ketamine is legal. They actually use it for surgery. They like put you
Okay.
under. They use it for animal surgeries and things like that. It's a disassociative. That's why it's so powerful, is because we loop in our heads like me, 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 me. When you take ketamine, it brings you out like third eye, like a bird's eye view to help you process that. So ketamine is 100% legal. That's
Okay.
why it's such a beautiful medicine. It opens the door for people who are, well, how I used to be, like, drugs are drugs, they're bad, like psychedelics are bad. So that really, like, you heard Chad say too, he started with ketamine and it is on the legal side. So that's kind of opening the door for people. And you also heard him say, um, for people who aren't ready for like smoke, drums, and feathers, right? Because
Hmm.
coming into this model, you start getting very spiritual very quick, but ketamine really helps, slowly going into this space without the shock of, like, ancestral ways.
No, I remember he was talking about doing all these ketamine therapies, but they would just pretty much open up the curtain, stick it in, say good luck, and then close the curtain, and then off you go, And I
Right.
guess there are some places where they offer a sort of more of a plant medicine vibe sit type, where they help you talk through things and integrate it and learn from it, and then bring it into your future and live into that. Have you experienced any of that or?
I haven't done ketamine. I did at this was probably like 6 or 7 years ago. My boyfriend at the time was really struggling with depression, anxiety. And so I was like, let's try ketamine. And so we went to the ketamine clinic and we sat there and it was very sterile, like you're talking about, where they were like, do you want to put the TV on? And I was like, no, no TV, no. Are you kidding? And so they stuck him in and everything like that. And it was very sterile. And then afterwards, like I was like, let's integrate this. Like, let's talk. What did you experience? What did you feel? And things like that. So, um, what I noticed is he had really bad tinnitus because he was a helicopter mechanic. He said it brought it down from a 10 to a 3. And I was like,
Really?
whoa, yeah. And
Huh.
so we took a long weekend where we did like 1, 2, 3, like back to back to back. And on the second day after his ketamine treatment, we went to the dog park to like walk around and kind of move things through. And it was really funny because he never curses. And all of a sudden I'm like, wow, I'm dating a trucker. Like, I don't even know who this guy is. But it was very sterile when we went there. And so I was really glad to hear at this conference, like they're acknowledging that, like you have to integrate and there has to be community because integration and community is vital. Like you get into disassociatives or altered states of consciousness of any way, you have to have a place where you feel safe enough to just even verbal vomit. Like, yeah, I was just traveling through the ether and I was a unicorn and then I exploded into 1,000 pieces and I became one with the universe. Like, and then having someone be like, well, what was the feeling behind it? Or what do you think that meant? And just to have a person be like, well, I think, it means this and that it's just vital. And so these sterile environments like cannot be used in these with these very powerful medicines. And that's why I say like this ceremonial use of psychedelics with like a shaman in community can't touch anything the Western model has to offer in the level of healing because the community is there. Like, I mean, I've been at ceremony where afterwards, you're like, what did you experience and how did you feel? And like, there's this connection.
Yeah. Um, like Chad was saying, like he went through some ketamine sessions and it was all very sterile and very impersonal. And then he was saying, and I've never even heard the word integration before, let's focus on that word, what it means, what it looks like, what it sounds like. Can you help me out with that one?
Yeah, and he also said I didn't know what integration was, and that was 3 years of ketamine afterwards. So integration is just really about unpacking what you experienced during these journeys, like how you felt, what you saw, what it means, and just like how you're going to take the message forward into your everyday life. And I
Hmm.
feel like there's like a window of opportunity after you have these journeys and the experiences to integrate it because you're still open. I think they call it the afterglow where
Hmm.
you're motivated and you really got to catch these people during that time. That's why it's so important. Like they have a good runway for takeoff. Like, how are you eating? What does your social group look like? Or, are you writing? Are you exercising? Are you eating right? Like, get yourself clean for ceremony, experience it. And then the landing, make sure it's a soft landing. Like, can you go home and be like, hey, I experienced all this and this is how I feel, and these are the changes I want to make, and actually have the support system to do these changes and make you a better human being so you can continue to level up. because, you go back into your life and everyone's like, no, you don't feel like that. And it's kind of what I've noticed too is you go back to like your friend group and then you're like, oh, these aren't really my friends. Like, oh, they want to keep me down. And you have to make all these changes. And so you want to start gravitating toward a more supportive community that'll be like, no, you do you. We will support you. Like, how can I help you move forward? And with, you know, therapy that I've been through is like, I'm tired of revisiting my past. Like, why am I screwed up? I know why I'm screwed up. I know what happened. Like, I don't want to ruminate in the sewer. Like,
Mhm.
how do I take that and take the silver lining and integrate it forward? Like, some of the characteristics I'm most proud of myself and who I am as a human to my core came from that trash. But I
Yeah.
had to move forward in this community to be like, oh, I see. So that's why community integration is vital, or just to even be in a container where it's like, whatever you got, we have a container big enough to support you. There is nothing you could do, say, or act that'll turn us off and be like, go away. Because I guarantee you, everyone in this group at some way can somehow connect into what you've experienced.
I love that. It's interesting, but some people reach out sometimes. They're like, "Oh, well, can you help me with my life?" I'm like, I can give you a lot of suggestions on what you can stay away from and what you can start doing, but the work is all yours. I can't help you. I'm not a helper, and you're not the helpee. I can
Yeah.
empower you with information, but you've got to do the work.
And you
And
don't want to do the work for them. You're cheating them out of their experience. Like, you are here to do this. I'm not doing it for you. You do it for you.
and then share with me everything you learned because it's so fascinating and it's so personal, and it's like I've never heard these things come out of anyone's mouth, and I probably never will again. You are so uniquely individualized as this person, as Jamie, and all of your experiences happened, and there were trillions of other things that could have happened, but it happened this way. And I think by this stage in our progression in our lives, we can look back from birth on and be like, that thing that I was calling bad that happened was a gift, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And all of
Absolutely.
the bad things or the ugly darkness, it's like, wow, I wouldn't be here who I am right now without all of it.
Yeah. And that brings me to the question I've been dying to ask you this whole time is people struggle with community is like me. Like my friend group was all anti this. Like I have many different friends now. And so you being Mormon, they have a way of looking at these, things like I can't even have caffeine, right? Like no soda, no. So when you came into the space and decided to do this journey, how did you find your community, and how did your family react to you?
Hmm. When I came back off my mission, I was in a hurry to get married because my senior year, my parents had gotten a divorce and I felt so alone and so lost, like I didn't belong anywhere. And I thought, if I just get a wife and have some kids, I'll finally feel less alone. So I was in a
Love
hurry
that.
to get married, and I married a great woman. We had three wonderful children together, and she's been out of my life for years. But the three greatest gifts I ever got from her were those kids. They are the reason I'm still alive. Love them to death. So we lasted about 12 years, and within the first year and a half to 2 years, we stopped going to church. We moved to Salt Lake City and stopped going to church. How ironic.
You
But
heathen.
yeah, right?
Right?
Oh, I was a heathen. But we started exploring and discovering ourselves and each other and life in all these different ways that were considered bad or evil according to how we were raised. But I'm so grateful for every one of those experiences. I learned so much from all of it. And I'm just so grateful that we had that 12 years together to have all those experiences and learn so much. But then when she had left, I went back to, oh no, I'm worthless. I'm alone. I've got these kids that are depending on me. And I literally dragged them through relationship after relationship for years. Every 6 months, we were in a new home. And I always brag about being such an incredible father because I taught them their whole lives what not to do. And I told that to my son, my youngest boy, when he was 16 one time, and he's like, "Huh, you're right. You should get the Dad of the Year award." I'm like, "Hey, okay, that's
You're like,
enough,
hey.
jackass."
Hey.
But it's so true. Like Abraham Hicks is someone I listen to quite often. It kind of start my morning routine day out with making coffee and lunch and all that. And it always comes up, like you'll never get it wrong and you'll never get it done. And I
Yes.
was like, huh, that's a great perspective, that shift my mindset to be like, whatever I do, I'm trying to be my best self at all times, and whatever I do, it's going to be okay, and I'm doing the right thing that will lead me into another right thing. And
Yeah.
that's exciting information to have at your disposal in your arsenal, to come at life with something so great as that.
Yeah.
I do believe now that reincarnation is not only possible, but highly likely, in my current belief system. And I no longer am a Christian in today's society's sense of the definition of what a Christian is. I'm a follower of Christ, and I learn all I can about him, all the different resources, not just the good books. But it's very interesting that, the more that I learn, the more I realize like I know nothing, nothing.
Yes.
And it's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. Yes. Because it means you have an empty cup and it can be full. I just got one of my friends just gave me this book, The Jeshua Channelings. Have you seen this?
Mm-mm.
It's really fascinating because it breaks Jesus down in a whole nother level, like the man, the spirit, and the spirit within the man. So it's like the man was Jeshua, the Christ spirit of who he is like the energy through him. And then the man and the Christ spirit is Jesus. And it breaks it down a different way. And it's very fascinating looking at it like that.
I'll definitely be checking that out. That's interesting. There's so much more to learn out there. There's unlimited resources. I mean, it's limitless what we can learn. But in this life, what are you going to focus on? What are you going to think
Mm,
about every day, all day
mm,
long? Is it going to be the
mm,
repetitive, automated, subconscious programming that you received from well-meaning but broken parents as a very young child, and then
mm,
operate 95% of your life subconsciously through that broken belief system or all the misconceptions that you received from misunderstanding them with your young mind? Or are you going to move forward and start learning some new things and trying out some new stuff and experimenting with everything and keeping what works for you, and accepting others along the way and saying, hey, that's courageous. I applaud you. Not for me, but wow. Or you can be like, you're bad, you know, because you want to do something that I don't agree with. That there's different ways to come at life and people for sure.
Definitely. And that's one thing that Jordan B. Peterson says that I love so much is like when you focus on others, like helping others, doing things for others, you're so much happier, exponentially happier. The people who are depressed and having a hard time are just thinking about themselves. And I think that's another secret in life is really find out how you can serve others. Like what are your strengths and how can you apply that to other people? And then somehow find a way to like support yourself like monetary through it. And that's, I think, the way to do it. Like you feel a need in society and that's your living. And so you're never really working, you're just serving your way through life, which is so beautiful.
Wow, I love that. It reminds me of that cartoon with the robots. See a need, fill a need. I don't know if you ever seen. I got a lot of grandkids and children and stuff, but I've watched all of them. Oh my goodness, so many times. But this robot, he looked up to this guy who was an inventor, and he said, "Anytime I see a need, I fill the need." And he invents things that people will utilize, and it really helps them. And that's a great way to come at life and serve other people. What
Yeah.
are some needs that you've noticed in society and people that are struggling that you're able to now fulfill?
Oh my gosh, the biggest one is just create safe space.
Hmm.
Like when you ask someone how you're doing, stop and listen to what they say. Because people are like, how are you doing? You know what I mean? And it's like, no,
It's
listen.
like saying hi and
And
bye. Yeah.
yeah, like and we have this like, verbal contract of society. Like, how you doing? I'm good. How you doing? Good. You know what I mean? And it's like, no, no, really, like, how are you doing? And then be curious about them and ask them and really just create a safe space for people to just be like, you can say whatever you want and they're accepted no matter what. And I feel like that's just a huge need that anybody can do. Like you don't have to be specially trained. You just have to
Mm.
connect. And I feel like that is such a, we're so disconnected. We're so what's the word I'm looking for? Separated.
Yeah.
And it's like that is, we are genetically and biologically created to be together and to connect to one another. And I feel like in this day and age, it's just so disconnected and everyone's so afraid about offending the other. And we work in a world where we can't even have discussions about things, like initially debating was learning to understand the other. And now it's like you debate and it's like, oh, I disagree with you and you're stupid. And because we don't agree on this one thing, everything you say is stupid now. And it's
Mm.
like, where did that, where did agree to disagree or learning to understand the other, stopping and listening, or like that, like, I'm sorry you're going through that right now. Like, how can I support you? I feel like that's like a big need. Safe space.
I agree. When was the point in time in your life where you intentionally and purposefully realized that you needed to create a safe space for yourself? I
Oh
ask that
man.
because you think about, like you can't give what you don't have kind of thing.
You just called me out on my bullshit because I'm like, I
Uh,
don't even know if even have that nailed down now. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
Because I feel like
Well, I love the
honoring
honesty.
yourself. Yeah, I feel like honoring yourself for some reason is so hard. You can tell others like you're okay, it's okay, you're loved, you're beautiful just as you are. Like, but when it comes to self, you're like, oh, that not me. And that's one of the things that Dispenza does at his retreats is when we do these coherence healings, like you tap into your heart, you take it to your brain, and then you send this deep love into others. And at the end of it, I was like, oh, this motherfucker, send it into yourself. And then the weeping just
Hmm.
starts. You know what I mean? So I don't think we fully nailed that down. And I think that's the journey of everyone is creating safe space for yourself.
I love that. We're so cruel and judgmental and unaccepting of ourselves. Growing up, especially, we internalize all the meanest, most cruel shit that we hear, and we repeat it most of the time.
Yeah.
And it's so
On
wild.
loop.
It's wild.
Yeah.
There's a book I came across called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell
Yeah.
Maltz, all about the self-image and how we self-perceive, and how we perceive is how we're going to project onto others. And it's almost like in the simulation, right, where these eyes and the neural connections inside the human brain that are connected to the eyes aren't just receivers, they're also projectors. I
Yeah.
learned that recently and I was like, wait a minute. So we're actually projecting our inner world onto the canvas of life?
Yeah.
That's exciting. Unless you're cruel to yourself all the time.
Which
Because,
is
uh,
easy.
but it just goes to show you, you can't really fully give to others love and acceptance and honesty unless you're able to do that for yourself first. And I think that's a lifelong process for sure of unfolding and
Yeah.
learning, unbecoming everything you thought you had to be acceptable or loved, to others. Oh, start within.
Yeah, my motto of life has always been do no harm and take no shit. And I just recently added, and that includes from yourself. Like when I start doing that, it's like, no, that's not true. Just enough is enough. Like you're doing the best you can, and that's all you can ask of yourself.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
So the first plant medicine you ever did, like me, was hape.
Yes.
Um, where did you go after that and why?
What do you mean? Like, where did I go after the ceremony to integrate, or like what
Um,
medicine to do
yeah,
next?
what plant medicines did you experiment with next, and what did each one give you? I'm just
Oh,
curious about
man.
that.
Ooh, that's a deep question because each one is different. So that's a great
Hmm.
question for a lot of people to understand. Like, not all plant medicines are the same.
Hmm.
So I started microdosing and I was getting some profound results from that. Like when you microdose with intention, so profound.
And
And then I
let's
started
define microdosing for everyone who doesn't know what that means.
so 1 gram is liftoff. That's when you really start to go. 5 grams is the hero's journey. Anything past 5 grams is like macro dosing.
Is it
Micro
just
dosing,
psilocybin?
Just psilocybin. Well,
Okay.
the full mushroom body.
Okay.
So microdosing is zero point 0.1 to zero point 0.2. So in that, so all subperceptual. Don't feel it. Don't feel anything high or anything like that. So, but what you will start feeling is like, oh, that's why I am the way I am. Oh, that thing in my childhood. Oh my God, that wasn't normal. And I thought, you know what I mean? And it starts connecting the dots. So I started doing that, and then I started doing a little bit more bigger dose. I think I did around a gram, and I I started understanding like the biggest takeaway from that was there's wisdom in the stillness. That was a huge one. It's like I know that, but what plant medicine does is like I know that in my being now, like on a cellular level. And then from there, I did Bufo. And Bufo, the best way, Bufo is 5-MeO DMT. It's the most powerful psychedelic on the planet. It comes from Bufo alvarius, the Colorado river toad. Um, and the best way I could describe that would be like your consciousness having a conversation with the consciousness while traveling through light. It's a very powerful, blow your hair back kind of medicine. From that, I literally dropped like 30 years of trauma from that. Like it was
Wow.
so bing bang boom. And it took me a while to integrate. It took me a long time to integrate. And the main message I got from that was I understood why my core trauma had to be so awful and had to be so cruel and had to be so painful. And the reason why is because there's nothing more pure than the love of a child. And that's my whole mission is based around my Uncle Michael. And it has to come from a pure and beautiful space. And there's nothing more beautiful than the love of a child. And that pushes me forward. But what I noticed from that one journey, it's like, oh, I understand now. Like I get it now. And so all these behaviors that don't serve me just started dropping. All the walls you put up, all of it started dropping. And it was like a domino effect, but it wasn't linear. It was like throwing a pebble into a water. And
Mm.
it's like all these unserving behaviors are just dropping. And now I'm in standing here like, what am I without this trauma? Like, who am I? What am I? Like, none of like I built an entire identity and belief system around this one trauma. And now that I've integrated, like, what am I? And that's when I went back down to Mexico to do Mike's full program, his full 4-day thing. And ceremony after ceremony, built. And then it was like, oh, I know what I am now. I know who I am. I know what I am.
Wow.
I know my mission, and I am freaking unstoppable. And so on the way back from Mexico from that trip, which by the way, the last thing that I said on Mexican soil was, I'm so glad I have no one to go home to and explain myself. Like, I'm so glad I don't have a boyfriend to be like, I'm really sorry in my sea of right. Apparently, I was really wrong. You know what I mean? So I was like so grateful I didn't have to explain myself. But on the way back, I was talking, to people in the car, and I was like, okay, I understand what I am and what I'm to do and what my mission is. Like, how do I do it? And they were like, you need to do ayahuasca. And I was like, I'm not doing any more medicine. And so after I integrated these 4 days, and I'm like, I'm doing ayahuasca.
How long did it
So
take you after you did those 4 days to really kind of integrate it fully?
it took me, God, better part of 6 months. Better
Nice.
part of 6 months. And I think I'm a fast integrator because this is really embarrassing. And that's why I'm so grateful that ceremony is sacred space and people understand. As I'm journeying and I'm experiencing these things, like, you have the internal dialogue. Yeah, I say everything. I talk it out. Like everyone can hear everything going on, which I'm just like, I said that out loud. Good. But it's really helpful because I can be like, okay, this is what I experienced on my end. What did you hear me say? And then I can connect the dots because a lot of the time is this medicine is so powerful that you can't bring everything back. And when you are very verbal like me and act everything out, they can tell me and I'm like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. So I can bring my messages back and integrate faster. So it took me a better part of 6 months to integrate that writing, journaling, meditating, like really rooting it out. And then I went and did ayahuasca, and beautiful medicine. she don't play. She does not mess around. That's like tough love. And she reminds me of my grandmother, loves her family, but you don't cross her.
Huh.
And so the first night I did 2 nights in a row. And the first night I went in with the intention of, I feel like there's so much work to be done in the psychedelic space. I feel like I'm so spread out. Can you give me the bullseye? Like, tell me what I'm to like focus on and go. And the message I got was, you don't feel worthy of love. Why would I tell you where you need to go? Like, you're not going to get the bullseye. You're unworthy
Whoa.
of love. And then lights out. And I was like, oh my God, right. And then the whole next morning, like talk, why I feel unworthy of love. Where is it stemming from? Why am I not opening my heart? What is all this? And then the second night, oh my God, I just, wow, through the ringer. It was gruesome. But what I love about ayahuasca is that you have a conversation with the medicine, the spirit of the grandmother. Whereas when you're doing 5-MeO, you're on the rocket ship. That's it. You will learn this by, and then with mushrooms, you're on it. But what happens with ayahuasca is you experience it. And what I experienced was she was throwing everything at me all at once. And I was like, I can't follow you. Pick one. And then, down the pathway. And I'm like, you're going too fast. Like, explain more. Like, what do you mean by this? And so you can actually have a conversation. And so it was a very, very beautiful journey, gut-wrenching journey. Like, I cried the whole next morning, I cried all the way home, I cried for the rest of the day, I cried the next day. And that was probably about a year ago, and I'm still integrating that journey still. And the thing with her is she tells you, you're going to get here and this is how you do it, boom boom boom, and hit these markers and don't come back until you've done your work. What I've heard, and I haven't experienced this, if you go back without doing the work, you just journey the same thing again. I told you already, you do this. So
Oh, that's harsh.
yeah,
That's awesome.
it's hardcore. It's beautiful, but it's hardcore. So I do. We haven't talked about normalized psychedelics, but we collect healing stories of plant medicine. And one of the veterans that we did an interview with, he was like, "Yeah, yeah, she's tough." He's like, "First, I lied to her, and then I lied to myself." And then she made me pay for the rest of the journey, like puking and you know what I mean? And stomach pains. Like, he's
Yeah.
like, don't lie to her. She don't play.
Um, I've heard the term release in many different ways, but I do remember at one time I had done a full dose, about 5 grams of psilocybin, and I laughed for hours. And I was like, what is wrong with me? My gut hurts. I'm crying. My cheeks hurt. I can't stop laughing. And somebody told me, oh, that was a release. That's a good
Yeah.
thing. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about it like that. I mean, I've heard about ayahuasca kicking people's asses and they're shitting, they're puking, and it is ugly. What other types of releases are there? You're talking about somatic breathing, somatic movement. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to address the puking and the shitting for ayahuasca
mm.
because that kept me awake for a long time. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
even when I did Hape, it was like when I went in there, I'm like, I'm not going to shit my pants, am I?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't shit because I'm not
Nobody wants to
playing
do
this
that.
game. No, I'm not playing in your sandbox. I'm not crapping my pants. But when you're doing these things and you're vomiting, it's not like you're puking when you're sick or it's like it feels gross. It feels good. It's like you're releasing crap. So like you're literally releasing the darkness and the stuff like that. So it's not a bad thing. So I don't want to scare people like when you're like,
Yeah.
oh my God. So I just wanted to, so what was the question again
Well,
for?
different indicators that you're releasing trauma or fears or darkness, different things like that.
Right.
What are different releases? I mean,
Oh my
laughter is a
God.
great one. That was fun, but what else
You're
is there?
lucky with laughter. Crying,
Mm.
screaming's another thing. That was my first bufo experience where at the end I felt like there was like clicking, click, 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 started at my feet, click, click, click through my body, click. It was like things were lining up and it in my head it sounded like the big like locks that you put on doors, like click, click, click. And when it got to my head, the last click went and the energy went through me. It was like the universal unconditional love. And the only way that my body could like release that was through screaming. And I'm talking like like screaming. Yeah, it was loud. So
Wow.
you could Yeah, and I didn't realize what happened until I came out of it. And I was in the ocean and I was with one of the veterans and I was like, did did I scream? And he was like, yeah, yeah. And I was like, was it loud? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, did it echo across the ocean and through the mountains? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, good, because it was like unconditional, like universal love coming through me. So but yeah, people scream, people cry, people throw up, people crap their pants, people laugh. So you got lucky with the laughing, but it's
Yeah.
just a way of things to move through you. And what I noticed in ceremony is everybody handles it so differently, like vastly different across the spectrum. Like you never know what you're going to get. And that was one of the questions that I had for Mike. I was like, Mike, everyone reacts so different. Like, why is this happening? And he said, trauma's ugly as hell going in and it's ugly as hell coming out. So you got
Wow.
lucky with giggles, super
That's
lucky.
that's so interesting. I've never really shared publicly like my first experience with psilocybin. Um, but for like about 4 days, I was just microdosing. I had gotten some, I ground it up in a coffee thing, and it was all powder. I put it into the 00 capsules, and I would take two of those every morning, and I thought, oh, that's a microdose. I didn't know what I was doing. I had become incredibly fascinated by the potential of plant medicine through Ram Dass on the Be Here Now network. He's got like all these different episodes, currently on episode like 284, I think. And every single one of them is mind blowing. I've listened to some of them 10 times. It's just like I really want to get that into my subconscious mind and live a different life with this information. It is so phenomenal. I love the Be Here Now network. But after that 4 days, I was going to have an afternoon by myself. So I put the pillow over my eyes so it was dark, and I put my headphones on and listened to some binaural beats. And I didn't know what an intention was at the time. It was his first time kind of experimenting, didn't know what I was doing. And I said, just show me what I need to see. And it did.
That's an intention.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right? Even if it's like, I don't know what I need, just show me what that is, kind of thing. And so I sat with it for hours, and it started showing me from the dawn of creation, like everything. And we're talking cavemen doing things that I was like, oh my God, that is disgusting. If I was there, I would save that baby. I would murder that guy, and all these things. I saw all of this stuff, and it was not with my eyes. I see so much more with my eyes closed when under the influence of plant medicine. And it was like a 360 IMAX experience that I was feeling. And it was just such a, it was incredible. I can't even really describe it fully and do it justice. But every time I would see something, I was observing it, and then I had an opinion about it. And a voice boomed through me and said, no judgment, no criticism, let go and let be. And 2 seconds later, I was judging something else I just saw. No judgment, no criticism. Let go and let be for hours, right? And I got sick and tired of it at a certain point. I get it. No judgment, no criticism. Let go and let be. I got it, And I went and I started to fill my cup of water because I got thirsty in the refrigerator dispenser. And I closed my eyes, and my feet broke through the tile in our kitchen and became roots, and they grew everywhere under our house. And I uncomfortably busted through our ceiling in the kitchen, and I became a tree that was larger and taller than all the other trees and had a 360 view of all the other trees, all the nature, and I felt like one with all of it. And I was like, oh shit, my cup of water's probably spilling over because it takes hundreds of years to do this, And I go back and I look at the water, it's half full. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? It freaked me out. It really did. And I went back and I got back under the pillow, said, okay, show me what I need to see. And I saw so much. And the main takeaway was stop being so judgmental and critical. Just observe with love. And that's a daily practice to this day, and it probably will be the rest of this human life because we're so inundated and overinformed And so many expectations are projected upon us, that we need to be certain ways and everybody should be just like us. But really, the beauty of life is the total and complete originality that each individual gets to be, and being loved and accepted in that safe space is everything. I love how you talk about community for that reason.
Yeah, that was beautiful. You gave me goosebumps. The tree and time, it's elusive, you know what I mean? It's so different. And what I've found myself too is like when those judgments come in, it's just like you can't stop them sometimes. It's like it'll come in, I'm like, ew, that was gross. You don't really think that of this person. And it's kind of annoying because it's like, ew, like that's, and these weird things come and go. And it's like, where does that come from? Weird,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's part of the human experience, I guess, like we think we need to be a certain way, and then we realize later in life, like, oh, I need to actually now work on unbecoming everything that I thought I had to be and just
Yeah.
be love.
Yeah. And that's what Joe Dispenza says, like working to become nothing so you can be everything.
I love that. That is so incredible. Now you had four of the old man crushes. It was Joe Dispenza,
Joe
Jordan
Dispenza,
Peterson.
Peterson, Nelson Mandela, and Dispenza.
Okay, so Nelson Mandela, describe what hits home for you with
His
him.
life was about forgiveness. It was all about forgiveness. And that was his thing in life. Like he dedicated his life to his mission and was in jail. And, there was all that fighting and everything back in Africa. And he was like, if I can forgive and I can let go, we can all forgive and let go together to move forward. And he was going to give his life. Like when I listened to his autobiography, he had to give a speech for a trial because he thought they were going to kill him. He thought they were going to execute him. And he was like, if I will live with this mission. And if this mission requires me to die, so be it. And so he was just so beautiful on the way he thought and the way his mind and how he changed society of just forgiveness. His message was forgive.
Wow, that's inspiring. I'm going to definitely download that audio and listen to that
Yeah.
one for sure. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Um, I'm so blessed. I work with my wife. We both work at the Boeing plant here in Mesa, and we work on wire harnesses that go into the Apache helicopters that are like 20 feet away, right? And for 10 hours a day, we're working with this little stuff, and it's so frustrating sometimes. And the first 6 months, I realized that I wasn't breathing because breathing meant movement, and you would mess something up, and it was so frustrating. And it wasn't my thing for 6 months. And one day I thought I was having a heart attack. They rushed me to the ER, and the guy did tests on everything, and my wife was really worried. And he comes in and he goes, "Well, I got good news. It was the man flu." And I'm like, "Huh?" There's some video on man flu about like guys are wusses, compared to women and what they go through. And my wife started busting up laughing. She knew exactly what he's talking about. And I'm like, "What do you mean? What was it? I couldn't breathe. I had a pain shoot down my arm. What the hell?" And he goes, "Oh, it's probably just a panic attack." I'm like, "Panic attack? What the heck?" And that's when 2 weeks later, I was introduced to this box breathing by a Navy SEAL, right? And so I started box breathing. And then I came across Wim Hof's information. And for 10 hours a day at work over the last 7+ years, I've been able to listen to content for 10 hours a day. So books, podcasts, thousands of them, and it's just been so empowering to take little things and try them out. It's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So, out of everything you've listened to and read, what have been the most important things to empower you to build a more beautiful, creative, powerful life?
Gosh, that is a really good question. Oh man, honestly, I don't know. Like there's just so much in there that's been built off.
And you started with the foundation of family and got through the suffering, and you read tons of
Yeah.
books over the years. What have been your top three books, say?
Oh, well, of course, Michael Pollan Change Your Mind. That's the one that just cracked it all. And then the Nelson Mandela book was so powerful on forgiveness. Um, I don't know why this is coming through. Atomic Habits is the one that really changed because it's not just about the mind, but it's about structuring your day to support you throughout life, And so Atomic Habits was really a game changer for me because it literally has you go through, like, you wake up, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? And then you nail it in. And what I found was, like, I was waking up in the morning and death scrolling for an hour.
Hmm.
Well, what do you do with an hour? You can write, you can get in cold water, you can go work out, you can meditate, And so, and then, how you start your morning is how your whole day goes. And Jordan B. Peterson says, like, life is about repeating. So you better get what repeats right. And so those atomic habits, like small habits linking one on top of the other, like, sets you up for success. And if you stick to that, then that was it. So that book really was the big game changer for me. Um,
So structure is
but
important, morning routine.
so important. It's vital. And I've noticed since I switched my morning routine, like, my life just completely took off.
What
Um,
did you stop doing and what did you start doing if you had to create those lists?
I got off social media. I stopped death scrolling. Like, my screen time drastically was reduced. And so I started working towards my morning stack. So when I get up, the first thing I do is I have lemon water, and I put magnesium in there and Soleil water, which is like a Himalayan salt. So I drink that. I go on a walk first thing in the morning. Oh, that's another book that was a game, 5 a.m. Club. If
Hmm.
I got up before like 8:30, I'd like feel sick the whole day. I'd feel like nothing. And a friend of mine and I, we were like, we read the book together and we were like, all right, I'm holding you accountable. I'm holding you accountable. Like, 5 a.m., we're gonna do it for 66 days. And we would wake up and send each other memes. Like, it got really funny because some of them were like, both of us were like, what the hell? But what I would do if I could catch my foot on the side of my bed and throw myself out of bed and go into like crunches or any kind of exercise to get you going, the 5 a.m. club was a game changer because that is like, if you can get up at 5 to 6 a.m. and have that hour, holy cow, that was the game changer. So I started getting up at 5 a.m. So I get up at 5 a.m. now. And so I do my thing and then I take a walk. So the first light of day enters my eyes. And then I come in and I do a meditation, anywhere from these days, anywhere from a half an hour to an hour and a half, depending on what I do. And then I go to the gym or I get in cold water, I go in sauna. So those things. And then I start my day. For jumping into stuff like that. But that's been a game changer. And this was all pre plant medicine use. And what I noticed is by setting my morning off like this, integration was so much easier and so much faster because I've already created the foundation of what you need for plant medicine.
It's like, boom, mic drop. This is what you
Yeah,
do.
this is what
I
you
love
gotta
that.
have it. And so if you're doing
Wow.
a ceremony every week, like, maybe spend the weekend, getting the atomic habits in order. That was a game changer book, and so was the 5 a.m. club. Big
Love
time.
that. Those are really good books. So Coulter Smith led a breathing session at like 10:30 last Friday, right before we kicked off the conference, right? Were you a part of
Yeah.
that?
I saw it. I was helping in the background, so I didn't get a chance to get there.
So I've done breathing through Wim Hof. He's got like a 12-minute thing that I do every day after like hop A and then meditate and all that stuff. But I'd never done anything like what Coulter put on. And I'm going to be having him on the show next week. And the thing that I got from that was as soon as he started this beautiful playlist and he said, okay, we're going to have an hour and 15-minute long breathing. And I was like, whoa, whoa, wait, what? I was
Am
Oh,
I going to survive
okay. I'm
this?
I'm just here to be present. That's my intention today. I'm going to be present. So I just stuck with it. And 3 minutes later, it was over. And I'm like, wait, can we keep going? And
Yeah.
I had waking journeys. Like DMT was released, and I had a waking vision, no plant medicine. And I was like, what? That's possible? That's so cool. Have you ever experienced like a waking vision, like away from plant medicine that was mind blowing for you?
Yeah. And I think so. Someone said this on Next Level podcast, that the third eye, like when we have with our eyes closed, we have these visions. you're seeing through your third eye. That's what she said. And I'm like, oh my God, that's what you call it. Um, but yeah, actually, I had just come out of a really good meditation. This was about over 3 years ago now. And I had just moved into this apartment. I didn't know how I was going to pay for it, but I was like, this is my oasis and this is my saving grace. So we'll figure it out later. And there was boxes everywhere and just crap everywhere. Everything was disorganized. And I just come out of a meditation and I was at the sink doing my dishes. And I had, like you said, like what you're talking about, I had three flashes of vision, boom, 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 and I knew what I had to do. And that was the presentation that I did. Was the three visions was the base of the Normalize Psychedelics project. It was the path we were going to take for filming. It was the end place we were going to end, which is up in Canada at the mushroom shop with that gangster Dana Larson who's selling all psychedelics over the counter, not legal, not decriminalized. He's just doing it. And then a picture of Artem's face, which is the co-founder of the Normalize Psychedelics project. And I just knew what I had to do. It was like you are going to rent an RV, you're going to go around and you're going to collect healing stories of plant medicine, and this is going to be power and impactful, and you're going to do this. And I had those visions, and I was just like, I'm not doing that. Like, no way in hell am I doing that. And then I just kept having these visions. And it was like almost, I'm sure you've experienced this. Like if you don't listen to spirit and it's like you were to do this, it just keep harassing you. And finally I was like 2 weeks later, I was like, okay, I'll do it. Just leave me alone. And so
Well,
fine, like mercy.
tell us
And
how that all transpired, how that went. Tell that story if you would.
and how we did it. And
Yeah,
yeah, so I
and like normalize the shirt. That's a whole movement, right?
Yeah, well, it's the Normalized Psychedelics project. And no, I don't have the shirt for it.
Okay.
I decided to go with Decrim Nature. So Larry would be proud of me that we did it for this. But no, I had these three visions and I was to go around in this path, pretty much the Southwest, like start from Flagstaff, go up through California, Oregon, Washington into Canada, then drop down like through Idaho, into Montana and end at Colorado. And there was such a sense of urgency, like do it, do it, do it, do it, and do it before the snow flies. And this was in August. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Like I'm gonna have to take a month off and like you were outside your mind. I'm not anyway. So when I was like finally like I'll do it, I called Artem, my co-founder, and I was like, hey Artem, like I had this download, this crazy vision, like this is what we're gonna do, this is what we're being called to do. And he was like, yeah, sure, Jamie, like yeah, like call me in 2 weeks. And I was like, you in? And he was like, yeah. I was like, all right. So then I called Larry. I'm like, Larry, I had this vision. I'm supposed to go through here. Can you put me in contact with all the decrim people? I want to get a boots on the ground view of what's going on with decrim because I didn't feel like we were properly represented in the media. And because the revolution will not be televised. So he was like, yeah, okay. So I reached out to all these people. I created this entire itinerary. We're going to be at this time, blah, blah, blah. And the next step was to rent an RV. So I called Artem back in 2 weeks. I'm like, look, I have this trip planned. I need to rent an RV. I need to execute. Are you in? And he was like, oh my God, Jamie, I thought you were high. Like, are you serious? And I'm like, are you in? Like, he was like, I'm in, let's do it. And so,
Were you guys
um,
filming the entire trip or?
we were just filming like interviews in the decrim community and pretty much the entire trip the whole way. We
Oh,
didn't
wow.
even thought we were going to film a documentary, which we still might do. But 3 days into it, I turned to him and I was like, Artem, we got to get this information out now. This is going to save people's lives. Like these stories of healing are just tremendous. And he's like, yeah, I was going to talk to you about that. Like, we can't sit on this. And I'm like, all right, what are we going to do? And so we started brainstorming our YouTube channel, what we're going to call it. We decided to go with Normalize Psychedelics. Psychedelic is very triggering, but we need to normalize it. It should just be simple, like Motrin, Viagra, psychedelics, heart medicine. Like, it should just be basic conversation. And so we completed the filming, we started releasing it, and the feedback we got instant. It just blew up. We released the first video just off of a personal account, and it just went crazy. And we were like, oh man, we need to step back and really give this the respect it deserves. So we created a website, a YouTube channel, Instagram, Facebook, and then we started, and we've hit over 1 million people. And right around this time, it was 3 years ago around this time. And what was really interesting is the message I kept getting was like urgency before the first snow. So I drove back, I returned the RV, and the next morning it snowed, the first snow and flag. I was like, okay, so there's that.
Wow.
And then so from then we've just expanded, and the beautiful thing is we are not only giving people permission through anecdotal stories, like this is how they did it, but we're also documenting the oral history of psychedelics. We're also giving people a platform who are doing beautiful work in this space to like get their message out there. Lolo Ferenga was one of our first interviews, and she is the face of plant medicine for veterans for the state of Washington. She was able to use the interview that we did with her to introduce to senators and congressmen, and like, this is what I do, and this is my story. And so we we're just growing, growing, and growing from there. And
So
that's
I'm
the
on
project.
YouTube right now. What's it called?
Normalize, Normalize psychedelics. And you can go to normalizepsychedelics.com. We're on Instagram as well and Facebook. And we have a portal now if you want to submit your own story. Um, and our new venture that we're kind of working towards is we're trying to build community around this because, like I said, community is vital for these things. And so what I want to do is set up kind of like a webinar Zoom style. So we have the interviewee, and then people can join to ask questions and connect with
That
people.
is awesome. I'm on board with this. So
Yeah.
Normalize Psychedelics. I just subscribed. There's 241 videos. That'll keep me busy for a little while. I'm super excited to
Yeah.
watch these.
Yeah, and the thing is we are sitting on a lot of content, but we're waiting for the funding because we're a 501(c)(3) nonprofit. So if people want to donate to us, that would be great. We are sitting on so much content. We interviewed a one of the first Vietnam veterans to go through Mike's program. So we have his next one is the one that's on the docket. So we're trying to get the funding to move forward. We also have so many projects in the wings that we want to do, but we're just waiting for the funding to get going. But it's a
That's
really
exciting.
fun project.
How amazing. Now, Mike's going to be on the podcast next Friday, and I'm really excited to dive deep into what he does, taking busloads of people down into Mexico and working on healing of serious trauma and empowering people to live a far more beautiful life than they can even imagine. That's exciting work.
Let me tell you this true story about Mike in creating safe space. It was the first Vietnam veteran, like I said, that went through, and he was under the medicine and he was having a hard time. He was throwing up a little, like, and like when you throw up like that, you're like foaming and snotting and mucus and everything. And Mike was right there, reaches in, he was just like got all of it, like flicked it in the sand and was like, boom, right back to it. And I was like, damn, like there's not much space that gets safer than that, dude. Like Mike's freaking gangster in ceremony. Like I was just like, wow, just in it, in it with the person.
That's incredible. He and Chad really we had our best friends there, and one of my buddies was there that was in the army for over 20 years, and he'd seen some stuff and gone through a lot of things, and I was really glad that he was there with us to hear those two speak in particular, and I really hope that my son someday will uh, listen to these guys as well. Sorry, one was in the Marines and one was in the army, and they've gone through some things that I'll never experience, just mentally, emotionally, spiritually, like being dumbed down and pushed into a box that they would never fit in normal life, and a lot of these vets come back, and most of them they just don't make it. There's so many of them that don't make it. He's lost my youngest son in the army lost a lot of people that he knew to suicide. So it's a real thing. It's a issue that can quickly and easily be resolved, not through big pharma per se all the time, although some people really respond well to those medications. I know I never did in 15 years, and I tried a lot of them. But things like ketamine, getting you out of that loop and shooting you off onto the trajectory you're meant to be on all along, psilocybin, MDMA. I mean, there are so many useful things that if we can get these things decriminalized and legalized, and uh, how many lives could it save? How many children's lives could it improve of these parents that are trying their best and they just don't have enough tools in their toolbox yet? So I'm just so grateful that you came on today and shared these things. Thank you so much.
Um, it's been beautiful too watching Chad go through his process because when I met Chad and got involved with Mental Joe, he had just like started the ketamine journey, so he wasn't ready yet for like because he says he's like not a lot of people are ready for like feathers, smoke, and drums. And so when I first started working with him, which was really interesting at the maps, I helped him work his booth, and he'd be like, "You're a stinky fucking hippie, Jamie," and I'd be like, I'm crunchy, I shower, okay, right? And so which was really interesting, so he's like gravitated towards that and things like that. And so what was really interesting was at the last MAPS conference, we went together for this like sound thing, right? And he was like, "Oh, I got to get closer to feel the vibes." And I'm like, "You're a stinky fucking hippie, Chad." And he's like this, "Yeah, I know." And he's like, so to watch the progression being like kind of against it to being like embracing it, it's been a beautiful journey because he started with ketamine and like moved, through the medicines, and he just went deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And so what I love about Chad is he really represents and is the voice for veterans that like when they first come into it, like not ready for smoke, drums, and feathers, but he can help them get there and walk them to the end, and that's so beautiful about what he's doing and what Mike is doing as well.
I remember in the drum circle, you said, "Don't turn it around and drum my wife, boom, boom." I was very ignorant about music and vibrations, and it wasn't long ago, just a few years, I went to my cousin's, and she provided a safe space for us in a ceremony. She goes, before we started anything or did any hape or anything, she goes, "Okay, I'm gonna drum you guys, like stand up." And I'm like, "Who's she gonna drum me?" And I stood up and the first wave hit and I felt it everywhere. And I was like, "Oh, this is a thing." I had no
Yeah.
clue.
Big thing. Yeah, that's why I tell people just lean into the woo. Like just lean
Yeah.
hard into it. It's it's ancestral rights. Like we were all there. We've just gotten so disconnected and far from it.
Yeah. That's the ancestral way back in the day. Before
Mhm.
we close out, what message would you like to get out to the world that serves your purpose and that you've dedicated to your Uncle Michael?
The big message that I want to get out to people is that you are not alone, you are not broken, and you are not without options. And that healing is a communal act. And then that true healing happens when we walk each other home, and that we are in this together, and that you just have to reach out. And even in your darkest times, just keep going. Like, I promise it'll get better. Just keep going. Just keep going. Hang in there.
I love that. That's profound. Um, what are the best ways for people to contact you if they want to or support you in what you're doing?
Best way to find me, my email is my first name dot my last name at gmail.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. You can find me at decriminalize.flat. No, decriminalize.nature.flagstaff on Instagram, the Decriminalize Nature Arizona on Facebook, Decriminalize Nature Flagstaff on Facebook. The biggest way to support is through the Normalize Psychedelics project. That's my baby. That's my passion. Normalizepsychedelics.com. Join our newsletter. It's been a long, we've been chatting like crazy. Anyways, join our newsletter, decriminalize, or help me. Normalize Psychedelics, and then donate if you'd like to be part of the project and help move this forward.
Will do. I support you guys 100%. This is amazing content that we've created together. I really appreciate the authenticity and the honesty and going deep into stories that may be uncomfortable, your adaptability. I mean, I acknowledge you for the work you're doing, and I don't think that any other human could be doing what you're doing right now.
Thank you so much. And the same at you. This is big. What you're doing, your website is beautiful. And thank you so much for taking the time and the energy and the efforts to get this out. Our work is so important. It saves others. And the first thing you want to do is help the person behind you, because those that have been burned are the first one to go into the fire to save others. So thank you for your work as well. And your wife, because I know she's like helping you there and the foundational stuff as well. So thank you to her as well.
Yeah, she's my biggest supporter. I really love her. Thank you.
Thank you.
I really hope that you enjoyed this podcast. Please, again, like, subscribe to the channel, and share this content with everyone who you think may love it. I really appreciate all of you and love you very much. Have a good one.